Jeka. In Wurrung language, a simple English translation is welcome. What's being shared with us through emerging elders of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, the traditional owners of the land that my feet are on today, is that Woman Jeka has a much more being purpose. It means to come with purpose. So I ask you to reflect on what your purpose is for coming on this rich journey of thought leaders and wayfinders over the next few weeks. And then I ask you to reflect on what the core parts of you are that this purpose is connected to you. What is woven into you? What has shaped this purpose over a lifetime? What are the deep parts of your cultural tale, which like a deep sea geyser burst into your core and then bubble to the surface of you? Today, I'd like to unpack this with you, or what are the points, presents a way for you to unpack and curate your own cultural tale and place yourself firmly in relationship to the purpose of this journey to explore cultural responses to climate change. My name is Tavale Ilalio, and I lead Mahana Culture, a movement with a purpose of awakening cultural dignity. We work globally with institutions in a relational and purposeful way to build cultural responsive capacity as a means to have the shared language, self-awareness, and appropriate postures to go on the adventures that are possible if the investment into readiness has been made. The journey to embed ourselves into innovative cultural responses starts with an exploration into us. That is always where we begin on our reflective learning journeys. My father, a proud Samoan man from the sand-swept paradise of American Samoa, Tutuila, always said to anyone that would listen, if you don't know where you're from, then you will never know how to get where you were going. My father also said that all you need in life is liver and onions, deep and complex on many levels, as my old man. But my now older, self-proclaimed wiser self reflects on the message he was trying to convey. As chief navigators of our own life voyage, knowing where we have traveled from will inform where we are going. Dr. Martin Brokenleg, a Lakota elder, has gifted us with this wisdom. We all drag a cultural tale 1,000 years long. Tale, T-A-L-E, a story. When they speak of this 1,000 years, the Lakota people consider not only the 7 generations that have gone behind us, but also the 7 that lie in front of us. So right now, in this present time of this cultural tale, we are informing what lies ahead. The ripples of the decisions that we are making have already started to flow. We are descendants and we are ancestors. So, if we all drag these cultural tales, then here's the important newsflash. We all have a culture, because often we haven't taken the time to pause and see the water we swim in. We can get pulled into the trap of culture being something that other people have. The ceremonies that they perform, the songs that they sing, the clothes that they wear. But when others look at us in mainstream culture, are they fascinated by the ceremony we perform for our birthdays? These wax sticks of fire put on top of the sweet, delicious thing called cake, a song that everybody somehow seems to know but can never remember when they learnt it, the cutting of the cake, and sometimes the 3 cheers that come at the end. What a ceremony. Do they marvel at our songs of Hotel California and Do the Hokey Pokey? I think about my father's words that can help us see the map. But as navigators, as we traverse our lives to place ourselves firmly in culture, we need wayfinders. We need a compass. So I wanted to share with you a compass for you to anchor yourself into your own cultural tale. Developed by Mahana Culture's very own Greg Morris, I present to you the simple yet complex blood, birth, and choice model. Blood, being your heritage, your history, where your parents and grandparents are from, your ethnicity. Blood is often the default when people think of culture, but it is but one component of the complexity and beauty of us. My blood runs from Western and American Samoa to New Zealand, to Ireland, to Scotland, a rich, and to be totally honest, a really confusing tapestry woven into me. Birth. When you were born, what was happening in the world? What music was relevant? What movies were in play? What kind of family makeup were you born into? I'm a child of the 80s, with all the color and madness that come with that being born into that time. The Cold War, music videos, Back to the Future, E.T., Charles and Diana, marching with my mum and sister against apartheid when the South African rugby team came to tour New Zealand. I was born into divorce, a huge imprint on how I would approach and be within my future relationships. And choice. What choices are we continuing to make through our lives? And what choices have been made for us? This is the most dynamic part of this model. It is the part that you have the most control and say over. My fierce, lovely mum chose to send me and my sister to a bilingual high school in New Zealand where we learned everything in Indigenous Māori and English, a gift to us that is still giving to this day. Then she chose to send me to meet my father's side of my tale in Southern California. I was only supposed to go for 3 weeks, but I returned a decade later. I suspect my mum knew I wouldn't come back, but she still loved me enough to make the choice in her life to send her son to the other side of the world so he could connect with a part of his blood that was missing. So this is a tool for you all to explore and connect yourself into your own culture, to curate your own cultural tale. If you consider this blood, birth, and choice framework as it flows through the generations, you can see that our blood and our birth is predominantly chosen for us. And then we set about a lifetime of choices which will ultimately inform the blood and the birth of the next generation of our cultural tales. I was born in American Samoa, Tutuila, and through my worldwide journey, I found the love of my life here in Australia, of all places. And we've chosen here to settle down, raise our family. In one generation, this cultural tale, which I am the present holder of, has set sail in a whole new direction. Still connected deeply, though, to where it's come from. I'm so excited to set up a lifetime of choices for my kids that they can continue to make, and so on and so on. So, as we go into this exploration into cultural responses to climate change, take some time to place yourself within culture, and see how those cultures that you are part of are responding. Because in the end, every response to anything is cultural. And there will be stories of light and shadow within your exploration. But you give those stories of shadow, light, and dignity as well. They hold a place in the wonder that is you, just as the stories of light do. Now that we've settled on the reality and excitement that culture is something we all have, how does that play into how we are responding to this global crisis we find ourselves in around climate change? You're going to hear some magnificent examples of Indigenous ways of responding to climate change and other ways over the coming weeks. I always find some tension in some of these ways because I'm thinking a lot of what will be presented isn't new wisdom. It's reiterations, it's reimaginations of old or lost wisdom, ways that kept our climate and world in balance for thousands of years, ways that are deeply rooted in authentic, interdependent, and deep relationships with the environment. At Mahana Culture, we present a cultural buffet of models and frameworks from around the world for people to build their own language and construct their own definitions of culture. But what we have found time and time again is that one of the greatest gifts that Indigenous cultures have for us, if we're up for it, is process, is who we become along the way, the how of getting this work done. I've introduced through the blood, birth, and choice model a way to build the personal capacity to prepare for the cultural responses required. And the reality that it all starts from the personal level, a deep sense of self-awareness as a means to lean into the cultural and institutional layers at play. We've seen over the past few weeks, global institutional leaders gathering to discuss policy, economic investment, science behind the crisis, inspired and driven by the words of Sir David Attenborough and Mia Mottley, the Prime Minister of Barbados. The institutional layer of this climate change response is a slow and complicated beast with such a diversity of lenses and agendas to navigate through. So, if we define culture as the way that we do things and the choices we make on who and how we want to be, then PermaQueer has rightly identified that it's the cultural responses that will change the game here. Relying on institutional levers to be the change is risky and requires patience that, to be honest, we don't have the time for. Consider the same-sex marriage movement that rippled through the Western countries around the globe in recent years. The institutions or governments weren't going around promoting and selling it, but one by one, country by country, that institutional policy lever was pulled around the world because it had moved into a cultural response. Personally and culturally, we were already living for it. We're living it, asking for it, respecting it. And it became only a matter of time before the institutional piece of that puzzle fell into line. So as a starting point, personally, we need to do the work to place ourselves in our own cultural responses. My little family, based up here in the hilly, leafy, northeastern suburbs of Melbourne, has just kicked off an 8-month renovation on our home. When it's ready in April next year, it will be one of the newest houses in the world, if only for a minute. But we've had many conversations around how we are ensuring that our little corner of the world is in relationship with its environment at both the micro, local community, but also the macro, global standards that we should be aspiring to. This makes up part of our cultural response to climate change. As Sir David Attenborough powerfully describes, we need to return to being a part of nature, as opposed to what we've become apart from nature. So I leave you with these takeaways. We all have a deep, deep, beautiful, rich, shadow and light-filled cultural tale to explore. And we owe it to ourselves and to the 7 generations forward to explore it, to own it. Blood, birth, and choice as a tool to explore your own cultural tale, highlighting again that culture is a living, dynamic process, always evolving, always on the move. So let's do it. Go and explore you. Find you. Awaken your cultural dignity. That's the starting line. Then, and only then, are we going to be able to say to ourselves and all the future generations of our cultural tale, I was ready. I was ready to respond culturally each and every time I needed to. Malo le sui fua. I commend you for your life, your curiosity, and your drive. Thank you.